The Silent Nun. In the quiet town of Willow Brook, there was an old abandoned convent, long closed after a mysterious tragedy. Locals only whispered about it, referring to the place as the Silent Sisters Chapel. The story went that one of the nuns, Sister Agnes, had died under strange circumstances, though no one knew exactly how. Some said she had been wronged by another nun, others spoke of a broken vow, but all agreed that she was an unsettled spirit. Rumors told of late-night sightings, a figure in a dark habit, her face hidden in shadow, moving through the convent's empty halls. Those who dared to venture near claimed to hear soft, anguished whispers in Latin, the words indistinct but dripping with sorrow. The air around the convent was cold, even on the warmest nights, and locals avoided it, saying there was something about the place that felt wrong. One evening, 3 teenagers, Carla, Ethan, and Jason, decided to explore the convent on a dare. Armed with flashlights and a single camera, they broke through the rusty gates, moving quietly past the rotting wooden doors. The silence inside was thick, almost suffocating, as though every sound they made was swallowed by the darkness. As they moved deeper, they noticed strange symbols carved into the walls. Latin phrases, long faded, were scrawled in messy handwriting. Agnus Dei, one read. Another, Miserere, almost looked fresh, as if someone had written it just moments before. "This place gives me the creeps," Jason muttered, his voice echoing in the empty corridor. "Let's just get to the main chapel and get out of here," Carla whispered. "This is too much." They moved toward the chapel, their flashlights casting trembling beams across the walls. When they finally reached the large oak doors, they paused. The air was thick with an unexplainable dread pressing against their chests. Ethan hesitated, but Carla pushed open the door, and the 3 of them entered. Inside, the chapel was as cold as a winter's night. The pews were covered in dust, and the faint scent of incense still lingered, as if clinging to the air for decades. As they walked toward the altar, Jason's flashlight began to flicker. "Stop playing around," Ethan said, but Jason shook his head. "I'm not," he replied, tapping the flashlight to steady it. Suddenly, they heard a faint sound, a low hum, almost like a hymn. The 3 froze, their eyes darting around. In the dim light, they saw her, a figure in a dark habit, standing silently near the altar, her face veiled in shadows. Her presence was cold, unnatural. Sister Agnes. The nun raised her head slowly, and though they couldn't see her face, they felt her gaze, sharp and penetrating, as if it could pierce through their very souls. The humming stopped, replaced by a raspy whisper that filled the chapel. "Why? Have you come here?" she asked, her voice barely a breath. We didn't mean to intrude," Carla stammered, her heart racing. "We'll leave." But as they turned to go, the doors slammed shut, trapping them inside. Sister Agnes glided closer, her footsteps silent as if she floated above the ground. "You cannot leave," she whispered. Her veil lifted slightly, revealing hollow, empty eyes, voids that seemed to pull them in, as if they could swallow their souls. Jason screamed, clutching his head, and collapsed to the floor. Ethan grabbed Carla's arm, dragging her toward a side door they hadn't noticed before. They burst through it, running through the dark, twisted corridors, Sister Agnes's shadowy figure pursuing them, her whispers echoing through the halls. "Run faster!" Carla shouted, her voice panicked, but Ethan's pace slowed, his face twisted in horror. He stared at his own hand, which was fading, becoming translucent, like mist. "She's taking us," he gasped, his voice trembling. "She's taking our souls." With the last of her strength, Carla burst through an exit door, collapsing onto the cold ground outside. She turned around, but there was no sign of Ethan, no sign of Jason. She was alone. In the days that followed, Carla told the townspeople her story, but no one believed her. The convent remained silent, empty as always. But every so often, someone would see shadowy figures in the chapel windows, 3 ghostly forms forever trapped in the Silent Sisters' chapel, and they'd hear Sister Agnes's soft, mournful hymn drifting through the air, as though inviting more souls into her silent, eternal darkness.